defended the head of the city's jails, saying he is turning Rikers around. Still, the DOC commissioner is facing criticism tonight from families, from attorneys, and in a new report.
If they can keep it a secret, it won't get exposed.
New York City's Department of Correction will no longer notify the public when a person dies in their custody. The change comes after 19 people died in city jails last year. Lizandra Cadu's son was one of 16 to die in jail custody in 2021.
They have to fix this problem, and hiding it is not fixing it.
Mayor Eric Adams defended DOC Commissioner Louis Molina and the new approach.
I support him to do the job I hired him to do, and whatever methods he needs to do it within the boundaries of not violating any laws or rights of people.
But serious questions have been raised about transparency from the Department of Correction. Dr. Lippy Roy is a former head of addiction medicine on Rikers.
Men and women that are behind bars are just not getting access to the treatment that they need and deserve.
This is a moment of extraordinary crisis within the jails where people are dying and being severely harmed at shocking levels.
Saturday, 31-year-old Joshua Valles died after he was rushed to the hospital from Rikers. There was no public notification of his death, and his attorneys say they were initially told he died of a heart attack.
The autopsy reveals a fractured skull.
And a special report from the federal monitor overseeing Rikers called out 5 recent incidents where people were seriously hurt or died, saying the DOC commissioner was not forthcoming with information.
He did not violate any of the rules on what he was supposed to report on.
After that report, public advocate Jamani Williams is now calling for the first time for a federal receiver to take control over Rikers.
What appears to be happening here is an inability to make Rikers Island safe.
Tamsin and Corey, the Department of Correction tells us while they will no longer notify the public when someone in their custody dies, that person's next of kin and their attorney will still be notified. And the DOC says any investigations that need to happen after their death will still begin.
Died Saturday after being held on Rikers Island since April. Rallies being held today outside City Hall calling for change. CBS News' Lisa Rosner is live there with the details. Lisa.
Mary, the group here says that around 24 inmates have died since Mayor Adams took office. This rally comes one day after a court-appointed monitor wrote to a judge saying that he had concerns over transparency at Rikers Island. Now, this all comes after Saturday, an inmate, Joshua Valles, about 31 years old, a Williamsburg, Brooklyn native, died at Elmhurst Hospital. He had been released from Rikers, but the cause of death is not clear. In a letter Wednesday, the court-appointed monitor for Rikers told the judge the general counsel for the Department of Correction said an autopsy on Valles revealed he had a fractured skull. However, days earlier, the monitor said he had been told that when Valles went to a hospital, he had had a headache and a medical condition. Valles' sudden hospitalization was highlighted in a recent report from the monitor that raised concerns about safety and transparency at Rikers Island. Valles' attorney says he was battling a drug addiction when he was arrested April 7th for allegedly breaking into a Harlem pizza shop and stealing 4 tablets. His attorney says the week after he went to the hospital, he was declared brain dead.
What we've seen is a lack of transparency, and we've seen a Commissioner Molina and a Department of Corrections whose story simply evolves to meet the moment, like a chameleon. So at first, he didn't report that this death had occurred. And they took the position that they didn't really have to report the death.
The DOC Commissioner Molina had previously told the monitor there was no official wrongdoing. The DOC tells us Valles was released and no longer in custody at the time of his death. The medical examiner says the cause and manner of death are pending further study. A judge has ordered the DOC to provide more information by next week, and a hearing is scheduled between the DOC and people representing the inmates for June 13th. We're live outside City Hall. Lisa Rosner.
We're getting closer and closer to the Department of Correction, seeming like they've lost complete control. Not only is the violence abhorrent, but the lack of information.
Quick reaction from the city council after a devastating report was released by the Rikers Federal Monitor on Friday evening. on the eve of a holiday weekend.
Right now, we are not getting the information.
The report provided new details about 5 violent incidents on Rikers within the last 2 weeks, including a death and several where detainees were severely injured after altercations with staff or other detainees. After one incident between a detainee and staff, the detainee had to undergo 3 surgeries and is now paralyzed. In another, an 80-year-old detainee with possible cognitive impairment was left restrained in a pen alone with no bathroom for 4 hours. And there were more. In these cases, the Monitor accused the Department of Correction of not being forthcoming with information. It questioned whether the department was committed to reform and raised profound uncertainties about whether the department could manage such incidents.
I am deeply disturbed by the latest Monitor's report.
It's the response to these issues that are raised and actually addressing them that is becoming a larger and larger red flag for this council.
Correction officials were appearing at the council on Tuesday to discuss another topic, transporting detainees to court. They were not interested in responding in person to the Monitor's damning revelations.
It's nice to see you.
The commissioner issued a statement late Friday saying, in part, the department is in a better place today than at the onset of the Adams administration.
The good news is that court production has improved significantly.
Case in point, officials say this month 96% of detainees made their court appointments. Just 146 refused to go. That's down dramatically from just a few months ago, when 1,176 detainees refused to go to court. The department has a new policy to get detainees to go, which can be taking them by the arm and putting them on the bus.
Staff is allowed to use and videotape soft-hand force. We had a policy that said you have a right to refuse. I don't think you have a right to refuse. I think you have an obligation to be in court.
Courtney Gross, New York 1.
We're in the Alert Center here. The City Council is discussing the transportation of those detained on Rikers Island to court. And Councilmember Carlina Rivera, she's the chair of the Committee on Criminal Justice. She's pointing out that this hearing comes as the latest federal Monitor report reveals violent, life-altering incidents in the last 2 weeks at Rikers. Now, Rivera says that in her work and their work, they heard from criminal defense attorneys that were told their clients refused to go to court, but their clients say they were never offered a ride. She also pointed to a recent survey conducted by the New York County of Defender Services that indicated 58% of attorneys who responded said that at least one time in the last 2 months, their client disputed the DOC claim that they refused to go to court.
The department will say that all refusals are captured on video. This may be true, but given that the Board of Correction has had its access to video content restricted, they are inhibited to conduct oversight on whether these videos exist and whether these refusals are legitimate.
So you heard about those videos, and that's what a new bill is now being introduced to make some changes to that. So that bill would require the DOC to record audio and video when someone refuses to attend court, upload that video to a database, and appoint a court production liaison who would work to make sure that attorneys can see these videos, and then establish a system to improve just overall court production.